Well, hey there. It's been a minute, but I'm back. I know my hair's it's long. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. Don't judge me. But I'm going to be doing these episodes on my own. I'm still going to have the same interviews that I always do. I promised you guys I was going to keep those. I'm going to keep those interviews here every week, but I'm going to try every week to give you guys a solo episode where I can give you some sort of insight to something, whether it's Dynasty, Fantasy, NFL Draft, maybe do some rookie profiles, talk about some players to trade for in Dynasty. And that's what I'm doing here today on the first solo episode of the Pretend GM. I'm going to take a look at 11 players who I think has seen their Dynasty stock change because of the recent coaching hires or firings, and whether that's good, bad, indifferent. I'm going to talk about what you should be doing in Dynasty, what I would be doing with these players, and honestly, just some really simple trends that I think could lend itself to making good decisions in fantasy and Dynasty football. All right, so the first player I'm going to talk about, Cam Ward, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, and this one's kind of simple. There's a good player there. It's not that hard. This is a good player, number one overall pick. There are tools to work with. I know there was a lot of times where, man, EPA per play was terrible and there were just a lot of boneheaded mistakes. That's to be expected of a rookie on a bad team. That just happens. But now you've got a good trio of coaches. Okay, Robert Saleh comes in as the head coach. Brian Daboll is the offensive coordinator. And that's really the guy that I want to focus on here, because Daboll comes in with an RPO-based scheme. And yeah, you're going to see me doing this, guys. I'm going to go and look at my notes because I'm just not going to talk to the camera the whole time. But Daboll's worked with a lot of good quarterbacks. He comes in with this RPO-based offense that fits Ward's strength. That's what Cam Ward did a lot of in college. You go back to the film, a lot of it was RPO-based stuff. It really fits his skill set. He's not much of a runner, but he can do enough where he's able to move in the pocket and he can work on some timing throws there. Now, after the bye week, Ward was actually averaging more fantasy points per game than Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, guys that were all happy to draft above him. But I think in Dynasty, what I want to do is I kind of want to zig when everyone else is zagging. I think a lot of people who drafted Cam Ward last year will probably hold on to him, but there's going to be enough Dynasty managers that are like, I may have made a mistake, and they're going to want to move off of Cam Ward. So listen, the Titans can put a lot of weapons around him. They have the number 4 pick in the NFL draft. That also means a high pick in the second and third rounds, obviously, as well. They can put some pass catchers there. They also have the most cap space of any NFL team. So you have a talented player, a good offensive coordinator, and a lot of resources to add players to the team. I'm excited for Cam Ward's Dynasty stock going forward. The next guy for me is going to be Kyle Pitts, tight end for the Atlanta Falcons for now. I'm going to put an asterisk next to this one because he's an unrestricted free agent coming off of a really good year where he may not stick around with the Atlanta Falcons, and that's understandable. He might get a big payday elsewhere. However, his dynasty value, his production may not hold up if he goes elsewhere. However, if he stays with the Atlanta Falcons, Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees are now the head coach and coordinator over in Atlanta. Kevin Stefanski's offense has always given us top fantasy production for tight ends. And same thing with Tommy Rees, who has been with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. You go back to Stefanski. I'm just going to list some of these players for you guys. Back in 2021, Stefanski was coaching TJ Hawkinson, tight end 3 in points per game before getting injured in week 13. 2022, David Njoku, tight end 10. 2023, David Njoku again, tight end 6. 24, Njoku's tight end 5. In 2025, last year, Harold Fannin is tight end 8 as a rookie. I think if you have Kyle Pitts in this kind of offense, and listen, we can kind of go which way we want with this. We can say, oh, this is Bijan's offense. He's the one to really go and buy. Absolutely. Bijan's going to be another guy whose value is going up. Drake London, I think, kind of stays the same. If anything, I might be slightly worried, but I think that Kevin Stefanski is really just going to be good for Michael Penix. Now, Kyle Pitts, if he stays there, I'm going to say he could be a top 5 dynasty tight end and a top 5 redraft fantasy tight end. That's big in a Kevin Stefanski offense. He's got the athletic ability. There's enough space for him to get targets in this offense and enough good weapons in this offense where there's going to be scoring opportunity. And remember, for dynasty purposes, Pitts is still young. He's only a year and a half older than Tyler Warren, the rookie that everyone was really excited about last year. So I'm still good with Kyle Pitts, and I'm happy to buy him if the price is right, but I don't want to get a little too over my skis here. Oh, hey, look, another young tight end we're going to talk about. I mentioned Harold Fannin before. Well, that's another guy who I think his stock is going up. Cleveland Browns tight end, Harold Fannin, second-year player. You've got Todd Monken coming in as the head coach. He is a pass first play caller, and we've seen him from the Baltimore Ravens to the Georgia Bulldogs to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been a good coordinator everywhere he has gone. I have like one small reservation, and it's that he might just be a patsy for this Cleveland Browns team. Like if they just have a bad year, they're going to be willing to just fire him, move on to the next, kind of cool, hip, young coordinator that could be a head coach. So that worries me a little bit with Todd Monken. But if there is some success, if he can work with a young quarterback, if he can work with a veteran quarterback, hell, if he can work with Shedeur Sanders and make that work, Todd Monken's going to keep this job. And he's really, really good for tight ends, especially in fantasy. You go back and look at what he's done recently. Baltimore tight ends over the last 3 seasons, they are 4th in receiving yards, 2nd in fantasy points, 1st in touchdowns by a lot, by 9 touchdowns. Okay. This is all tight end groupings. Okay. Not just Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely or even just the 2 of them. It is the tight end group. Todd Monken's done this though too. Like it's not just Baltimore. He was at the University of Georgia where everything was looking really good with Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. Before that, and this was the one that actually stood out to me the most. Before that, you go back to when he was in Tampa. Cameron Brate was out here putting up back-to-back top 10 fantasy seasons. Yeah, Cameron Brate, not a bad player. But I didn't remember that he was doing top 10 fantasy seasons. So you put Harold Fannin in this situation where there's an offense that really doesn't have a number one with, let's say it's Shedeur Sanders. Let's say it's a new quarterback like a Ty Simpson comes in or even a veteran, right? They're going to get this ball to Harold Fannin, just like they were doing last year. So this could be a long-term win for Harold Fannin if Todd Monken sticks around. If he doesn't, I'm like a little worried, but not really. Harold Fannin had a really good rookie season, and there's not much else around this Browns offense. And David Njoku, not going to be there forever. So if I have Harold Fannin, obviously I'm holding, but if I'm looking around my league, I just want to talk to the Harold Fannin manager, okay? There's probably someone there that's saying, okay, I want to cash in on this big rookie season. But it could be the other thing, right? Like they could be saying, well, Todd Monken's really good for tight ends, man. Like I'm in the know. I know what happens when this guy comes in. This is going to be really good for Fannin. Well, then the price probably isn't going to be there. But I'd reach out to that Harold Fannin manager in your league. Next up, Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. Drew Petzing is now the offensive coordinator in Detroit. And I know that doesn't sound sexy, okay? He's coming from the Arizona Cardinals where the offense wasn't very good. But remember, they had injuries to James Conner, then to Trey Benson. Then they lost Marvin Harrison Jr. for a while. And I mean, most importantly, they lost Kyler Murray for a while. They were down to backup quarterback, 3rd and 4th string running backs. Michael Wilson was the leading wide receiver who now, like, he might be good. There's so many things there, but Drew Petzing does fit this Detroit Lions offense because what he does so well is set up play action really well. This is something that he has worked with for a long time, and it really fits Jared Goff, who is one of the better play action quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, there's been a lot of, yes, this is good for Sam Laporta. No, it's not good for Sam Laporta. He can't possibly get this many targets. All I'm going to say is this. We don't know how many targets he's going to get. Like, this was already a crowded offense, right? This is still a good thing for Sam Laporta, that we get a coordinator that likes to use the tight end. And this is not just a Trey McBride thing. Petzing was a tight ends coach before coming to Arizona. He was a tight ends coach in Cleveland where, hey, guess what? I just listed all the Cleveland tight ends earlier that have been really good throughout the years. That's part of his responsibility. So Drew Petzing does have an affinity for the tight end. He is going to use Sam Laporta, get him into some mismatches. That's a big thing that was talked about. But the guy who I'm most excited about is Jahmyr Gibbs. And it's kind of weird to say that because it's like, how does Jahmyr Gibbs get better, right? He's already top 3 dynasty running back, maybe even running back 1 for some people. So how does he get better? Well, maybe the ranking doesn't go up, but the production can absolutely get better because this was not an efficient running team last year. Now, the Cardinals with Drew Petzing, when he's had his starting running back, James Conner, he's been 7th and 8th in EPA per rush. That's a huge step up from Detroit, who was 29th last year. Now, yeah, we can kind of paint these stats to be whatever we want. Everything did sort of start to fall off last year, but everything with Drew Petzing from last year is more of a victim of circumstance of losing players and not having enough talent to keep the offense going. But those Cardinals were actually still very competitive in games. Whereas the Detroit Lions, we felt that something was off. We saw that something was off. You went half the year with not using Jamison Williams, and then you kind of see the wheels start to fall off a little bit with David Montgomery. There was just a lot of things that weren't working well with the Detroit offense. I think this is going to be a step in the right direction. So while it might not be this massive boost for Jahmyr Gibbs or Sam Laporta, it is a positive indicator of what they could be doing in fantasy because they have a coordinator that fits their skill set and can be good for this offense. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders, Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty. I highly doubt you're going to be able to get Brock Bowers without giving up your firstborn child, but Ashton Jeanty might be a little bit more doable. Clint Kubiak is now going to be the head coach over in Las Vegas, and he obviously has done a great job with the Seattle Seahawks offense, who just won the Super Bowl. Did you see Ken Walker? That is my baby boy, Ken Walker. Super Bowl MVP. Ashton Jeanty now gets that same coach, the same guy who has set up Ken Walker for success. And by all means, like, Ashton Jeanty was a better college prospect than Ken Walker ever was. So I know there's a lot to be worried about with this Raiders offensive line. The offensive line's not great. It's going to be a rookie quarterback. There's a lot of things to dislike, but that's also the reason to go and buy. There might not be a lower price tag for Ashton Jeanty than right now, coming off of a disappointing rookie season where everyone's worried about the offensive line and you've got a rookie quarterback coming in and a new coach. I know there's probably some hype around Clint Kubiak, but this might be the lowest cost you can have for Ashton Jeanty for the rest of his career. I think that's worth a try. Reach out to that dynasty manager and see what he wants to do with Ashton Jeanty and see if there's something that you can't do. I would not necessarily go for a running back for running back swap. This is the kind of thing where, and I can't stress this enough, use different positions. Find out what that person needs. Talk to them first. Don't just send out, here's Wan'Dale Robinson for Ashton Jeanty. That doesn't work. So talk to that person, find out what they need, see if you can make an Ashton Jeanty trade work. But Jeanty's going to get more opportunities to run in a wide zone offense. It's going to get him in space. He'll remain featured in the passing game. Maybe not as much, but Fernando Mendoza, yes, he can run. He's not going to be a huge runner. So he's going to want to get the ball to his best players. We saw him do that a lot with Surratt and Omar Cooper over at Indiana. Now, I will say this with Brock Bowers, I think there's not just like tight end one upside, but there is absolutely break fantasy and dynasty football upside here. He can be doing a lot of the same things that JSN was able to do. And to do that at his size, his speed, everything he was doing, we've seen that Clint Kubiak is not afraid of using someone in a target hog role. I'm really excited for Brock Bowers. He's going to be my dynasty tight end one. He's going to be my redraft tight end one. I know I love Trey McBride, but everything with Clint Kubiak and Brock Bowers working together has me really, really excited. All right, last team that I'm going to look at here for the players that have had a positive impact, it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. And this is Mike McDaniel, man. Like, yeah, I know. We'll pour one out because my Miami Dolphins suck again, and they're restarting again, and we've never won a playoff game in my entire fandom. But yeah, Mike McDaniels, now the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers. He gets Justin Herbert. He gets Amarian Hampton. He gets Ladd McConkey. I mean, there's so many players that I could just put the entire Chargers offense. Sure, it's on this list. Go and buy them. But the guys I really want to focus on, Justin Herbert, I think it's going to be as simple as this. Under McDaniel, the Dolphins have had the highest rate of pre-snap motion and play action in the NFL over the last 3 seasons. That's going to be big for getting the defense on their heels, not knowing what's coming next. Now, we saw what the highs could be with Tua Tagovailoa. There was times where he was being talked about as an MVP candidate. And to now look at where he is when things started to fall apart, you have to ask yourself how much of that was scheme, how much of that was Tua. I say a lot of that was scheme. And that's a lot of things that you can see from whoever was in at quarterback. The Dolphins were still able to do a lot of the same things. Now, this is not is Tua good. This is more about just Herbert being a really good quarterback. Now you fit him with a really good offensive coordinator. I'm excited for the creativity. I'm excited for the deep ball. I'm excited for a lot of things that's going to get players into open space. Justin Herbert becomes a top tier dynasty option because we could see a guy that's really, really good for the next 5 years. Now, Amarian Hampton, I think, is the crown jewel of everything I'm talking about here today. Mike McDaniel's rushing attacks have ranked top 5 in yards per carry and second in explosive rush rate across multiple seasons. A lot of that, yes, has to do with Devon Achane. I'm not going to deny that. But Mike McDaniel's running backs, as when he's been a run game coordinator or a head coach, let's go back to the 49ers, 2017 through 2021 as the run game coordinator, they were 8th in yards per carry and 2nd in explosive rush rate. Then with the Dolphins as the head coach, 4.7 yards per carry. That was 5th in the league, and then a 9.9 explosive rush rate, 2nd again in the NFL. So you're telling me we're going to take Omarion Hampton, who can get a big workload, be in a really good offense, have some explosive runs, get a good average, and he's also going to catch the ball. He's going to be a goal line back. Like, where does the stars not align in this situation? This is a really good player with a good coordinator. I'm loving this for Omarion Hampton. If I am a contender for next year, I'm going to give one of my first round picks this year for Omarion Hampton. And honestly, you might have to give a little bit more. This is a very weak rookie draft class. I'm going to get more into that, especially with my rookie guide that I'm going to have for you guys. But I am going to be willing to move mountains to go and get guys like Omarion Hampton and Ashton Ginty after some down rookie seasons. Okay, this is where I get to the negative portion of this. There's two guys that I am willing to move on from, or we can call them the perceived losers from the coaching changes that have happened here. First one is going to be Trey Benson, running back for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Mike LaFleur comes in as the new head coach for the Cardinals. He was the offensive coordinator for the Rams. Nathaniel Hackett is now the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals. Nathaniel Hackett is the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals. This is not great. Mike LaFleur comes in from a system in Los Angeles where he was using two running backs a lot. And you look at what his brother has done too, and obviously not everything is the same, but they've always kind of been two running back people. Like, this is what they do. They get guys in a 60-40 split or a 50-50 split. That's just kind of in their DNA. Look at Kyron and Blake Corum there on the Rams. They were in a split. Now you added Nathaniel Hackett, and let's just fight fire with fire and watch everything burn, because we're going to get two running backs here that are going to be splitting. I went back through Nathaniel Hackett. He came from the Jets in 2023, Broncos in 2022, Jaguars and Packers before that. I went through. Remember Breece Hall in 2023 with Nathaniel Hackett? 49% snap share. You remember Javonte Williams on the Broncos? 53% snap share. Aaron Jones in 2021 on the Packers. Remember the free Aaron Jones movement? 48% snap share. This is not good for Trey Benson. So all of you that have been holding on to Trey Benson, waiting for the breakout, it's just been bad luck, man. Like, he has this terrible injury, and now he's going to have these coordinators that are going to want to split his workload because they're going to want to keep him healthy. I don't love that for him. I don't love that for his dynasty value. I don't love that for redraft fantasy. Maybe at some point he's going to become a value, and I'll draft a guy like that in redraft if he becomes a value, but I hate this offensive scheme, and I don't really like these coaches for the dynasty value. So if I have him and there are people saying, finally, Trey Benson's going to get his shot as the starting running back, I'm selling him as quickly as I can before the NFL draft and before free agency. Now, the last guy I want to talk about, this might be a surprise because I've seen him listed as a winner from the coaching changes and a player to buy. And I'm going to say Jaylen Warren is actually one of the losers from the coaching changes. And I know Mike McCarthy comes in and we say, okay, that should be better for the offense, right? Like, that's better than Arthur Smith, could be better than what Mike Tomlin has been doing. And I even thought about maybe putting DK Metcalf here as a guy this could be good for. The problem is they don't have a quarterback. We don't know who their quarterback's going to be. If they bring back Aaron Rodgers, which, I mean, would be kind of just funny, like, you know, Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers back together again. But I don't see that offense being better. Aaron Rodgers is a shell of his former self. Like, he does not mesh with what DK Metcalf does. Rodgers is a timing quarterback. Metcalf is a big play merchant, a guy who can win on deep balls. They don't, they're oil and water, man. They do not mix. But now Jaylen Warren, you say, okay, he should be one of these pieces in the offense that makes sense. We can just keep giving him the ball, feed him the ball. He got that contract and he was pretty good last year. Yeah, you're right. He was pretty good last year, but go back to Mike McCarthy's career. I know he had a couple of years here recently where he gave a big workload to Rico Dowdle, but that was after Ezekiel Elliott was terrible. And then same thing with Tony Pollard. He gave Tony Pollard a big workload and Tony Pollard wasn't great. He struggled and he kind of had to start working in other running backs. named Rico Dowdle. So like we've seen this where he has tried to do the workhorse back thing, but throughout his career, went back 2022, Zeke and Pollard in a 50-50 split. 2021, Zeke and Pollard in a 60-40 split. 2018 on the Packers, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, 50-50 split. By the way, that was with Nathaniel Hackett. And then 2015, Eddie Lacy and James Starks, 50-50 split. And I'm jumping years because I would just be listing so many years of so many running backs doing the same thing. This has been who Mike McCarthy is. He's going to split time with his running backs and keep guys healthy. So listen, the Caleb Johnson truthers, like this could be the moment for you where he's doing something and getting more involved. This could also be the time where Kenneth Gainwell gets re-signed. Who knows? But this could also be something where Mike McCarthy says, hey, I want to go and draft my own guy. And he picks a guy in the middle rounds, or he signs a guy in free agency. There's a lot that he could do here. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a second or third running back get added to the room in Pittsburgh, which honestly, I think is just going to end up limiting Jaylen Warren. Most of all, it's not even just the snaps. It's going to be that they don't have a quarterback. Even if they draft someone, I like Ty Simpson coming out of Alabama, but if they draft someone in the first round, do we really think the offense is going to be that good? Maybe in the second year, but I don't see that happening here in the first year with Pittsburgh. I know Mike McCarthy can be a good coach. I just don't love this for Jaylen Warren's dynasty value. So he's a guy that I think if we're looking around, you might be selling high on him and actually being able to get out of this before everything goes south in Pittsburgh. Well, guys, I told you I'm going to be doing the same interviews that I have been doing with analysts throughout the NFL draft space, dynasty space, fantasy space, but once a week, I'm going to be bringing you guys these episodes where I'm just going to talk to you. I'm going to go through some of my thoughts and hopefully make you a little bit better at playing fantasy, dynasty, or just being a fan of the NFL in general. So as always, I want to thank you for watching and listening all the way through. See you next time. Adios.